Welcome to the InsurTech Business Series podcast. I am Fudumi.
And I am Gamola. And together, we host the most exciting podcast on insurance and InsurTech related topics in Africa. Stay tuned.
Thank you very much for coming on our podcast. We're really excited about this, and we're so grateful to have you join us on our podcast, Patrick.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with the two of you. It's been great interacting with you for a few years, and now we get to actually meet virtually and talk about our favorite topic, insurance and innovation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's one good thing about the world of technology and, technological advancement. So before we delve into the core discussion today, especially about, insurance, InsurTech, and the general ecosystem, we would like to get to know you. So who is Patrick Kellyanne?
I'm a person who's had many jobs and worn many hats over the years. The last 6 years, while I've been working with an engineering firm named H2M Architects and Engineers as an insurance and building consultant, I've also built my alter ego that I call the insurance elephant. And how that came up, just very briefly, is once I left my work at a large U.S. insurance carrier as a property insurance person, I began to interact with people and found this magical topic of InsurTech. And the more I asked around about what it was, the more I found out to each person it was something different. So it kind of analogized with an ancient fable called the Six Blind Men and the Elephant. And of course, you have six blind men. Depending on where they touch the elephant, they describe it differently. The person who grabs the tail says it's a rope, and the person who grabs the leg says it's a tree. So long story short, the insurance elephant concept was born. And that's kind of been my direction over the last 6 years. A year ago, a colleague of mine, Carlos Miguel Vidal out of Peru, we began marketing the concept as an incubator / mentorship, the insurance elephant. So, and in the interim, I got to meet an awful lot of nice folks like yourselves and became very focused on building insurance awareness and availability in otherwise underserved markets like Africa, for example, South Asia, Latin America, et cetera, where, more than 3 billion persons are not well exposed to insurance, which is a vital part of the modern economy. So that's kind of how it led up to the three of us speaking today, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. From your work within this space across the world, speaking with a lot of innovators, if you are asked, and I'm asking now, all right, what the future of insurance is or would be, what would you say?
Well, I say you have to look at it in two aspects. One is the mature insurance world. You could call it the Western market. And then the other is the emerging world. Western market is often what people focus on because insurance is a well-known concept. And you don't have to tell people what insurance is. Whereas if you contrast it with markets, again, like the underserved or less exposed markets, the day-to-day people just don't have a good grasp of what insurance is. And not because they don't want to. It's because it's just not part of how life goes on. You have a salary person in India, or you have a tuk-tuk driver, or you have someone who runs a mango stand. Everybody's used to just working day to day. So the future of insurance, if the insurance world is smart, is exposing these large populations to the wonder that is insurance, even if it's in tiny little pieces, micro policies and such, because insurance is the foundation of economic opportunity. So I see the future of insurance looking at not necessarily from a Western aspect of education of what insurance is. And I'm not saying sit down and learn what a policy is. I'm saying here's what the concept is. If you have a problem and you have insurance, that means you're not going to disrupt your family for a generation by having to pay for it out of your own pocket. You've got you've got a mechanism in place that helps share the cost of risk. So I see the future of insurance as being exposing new markets to the products, because as time goes along and people have these magical devices in their pockets called smart devices, phones, whatever, and they can access insurance through, say, a WhatsApp chatbot like they do with MotorSure in Kenya, or getting insurance on an app by the minute like PayU is doing, or building a new model in Angola like a business is doing. I see the future of insurance as being clever, energetic, and forward-thinking businesses making the product available, whether it's embedded, whether it's micro policies, whether it's just health insurance, whether it's just third-party insurance. There are a wealth of innovative startups in all of these markets. If you look at Africa, and I'm what they say, preaching to the converted here on this call. You two are aware of the vibrant startup environment in Africa, and I'll tell you, Western eyes don't realize it. Okay, because Africa's exotic to someone sitting in the United States, but when you're living in it, you realize that what we're doing to build the insurance awareness is remarkable. It's a generational, wonderful change. And that's where I see the future of insurance within emerging markets is people saying, wow, for a small amount of money, I'm going to have protection for my vehicle. So as a ride-sharing driver, I don't have to send my kids off to family members to live because I've had to sell everything to recover, or I don't have a way to do my business. So I know it sounds kind of optimistic, but I see the future of insurance as being the future of economic opportunity in these markets. Yes, artificial intelligence comes in, digitization comes in, but it's teaching the concept and building trust that these things are great within these economies. I see that as the most important future of insurance.
While we are seeing, a bit of digital disruptions, again, this is like the world of AI, and, with the recent development coming from ChatGPT. For the future of insurance, do you think that these technology disruptions would sort of impact the way people perceive, react, and accept insurance? So we're talking from a point of the consumer perception about insurance and in terms of acceptability of insurance as a whole, but from a perspective of technology, and how are we able to then merge that together?
Yeah, I'd like to answer that in two parts as well, Flumi. If you walk into the marketplace across the bridge of Victoria Island and you say, I've got the best app ever for you to purchase insurance, shopkeeper, they're going to say, well, what's that to me? And then once you can educate them what insurance is, and you go to the most commonly used app that people trust because they communicate and they maybe pay bills or whatever through WhatsApp, and you say, look, just access this, because the way insurance is sold in emerging markets is feet on the ground. We all know that, face to face. But if someone can, through a WhatsApp chatbot, access generative AI responses that in the vernacular in which they are accustomed, help them understand how to acquire a product, how to make a claim on the product, answer questions about a claim or access to features. I think generative AI can be a wonderful adaptive tool, because we don't know how crazy it's going to evolve. But if you take it right now and you don't force the chat bot to communicate only in English or only in French or only in Swahili, but it's in a vernacular, people begin to trust it like a family member. It's crazy because the chat GPT in its many iterations begins to talk to you like how you interact with it, right? So if you answer a question a certain way, it's going to respond in a certain way. So I think clever insurers or clever fintechs will harness that capability and not try to force a certain way upon people, but let the AI evolve to the consumers that are interacting with it. So in an insurance environment, if you have a customer that's not familiar with insurance so much, but they ask questions and the generative AI is responding in a manner that's not too technical or too high in its words, then people will begin to trust that it's a good information source. And let's not have Chat GPT or generative AI being what we're selling. Let's have it be the tool that helps us sell or provide insurance. And that would be a big differentiation because, we all like clever, shiny new things. But if you're an insurer, you're not a person selling AI. You're a person selling insurance. So use AI as just a tool, no differently than a carpenter would use a hammer to facilitate product penetration and product understanding.
Yeah. Interesting things that you said. And one of the things that we have seen in the market, especially looking at the African market or markets where penetration are lower than in the West, there's not enough localization of this thing called insurance, right? Whether it's product or the customer centricity, right? And yes, just like you mentioned, AI can definitely help on that journey, right? One sentiment that I have is InsurTech, for example, can be a good vehicle on that journey as well in terms of working with insurers. What are your thoughts, around building product for Africa, right? Because again, today you have motor insurance products that is the same motor insurance product that you have in the UK, that is being sold here. However, the markets are different, customers are different, right? What are your thoughts around, building for Africa, but then also leveraging this kind of innovative partnerships like working with fintechs, insurtechs to create those products or even get those products to the market, even to segments of the cost of the population that were not previously served?
Hey, this is Brian Falchuk from Boston, Massachusetts in the United States of America. I want to give a shout out to the InsurTech Business Series, Falumi and Damola. What you are doing to help move the industry forward in the African continent, but also more broadly for the industry at large is so incredibly important. As I think about the future of our industry, it's conversations like the ones you're having that will help us move forward. So congratulations on the success of the show. Please keep at it.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I say it gets to the root of getting insurance exposure and penetration into markets like Africa. And of course, not all of Africa acts the same way. And we don't have to say that, but I will. But you take a starving man and you put him in front of a buffet table, and he's going to eat until he gets sick, right? And that's somewhat what we're looking at in Africa. You've got 97% of the population that not only doesn't have insurance, but doesn't understand insurance. And I don't mean that in a hard way, but that's, everybody's self-sufficient and pulls himself up. So if you take a general insurance product from the West and you say, okay, we're going to sell you a motor insurance policy, and it's got comprehensive, and it's got liability, it's got all these things, and it's 170,000 naira. Pay me now, and people are going to say that's all well and good, but I can't pay you 170,000 naira. Come on, that's crazy talk. So and it's not because people don't want to help themselves. It's just you can't necessarily pay by the year. So how do we get past that? You take an example like PayU, where an app has been developed and people can pay by the minute. They click an app and they can start insurance. So they're fitting it into they earn day to day, they can pay day to day. Their needs change day to day. So why should their insurance not change with what they need? All right. So if you're not driving a vehicle for 2 weeks out of the month, why can't you choose to not have comprehensive insurance on the vehicle because it's just sitting there? So the products have to be able to react to the customer's lives, right? It's got to be, the control has to be more in the hands of the person buying the insurance, as opposed to, as you mentioned, you get a product that's built in Europe, where it comes in, it's a policy form, and plunk, there it is. You get all these things. Well, people don't need all those things. They need what they need. So can you take the buffet thought and say, okay, go choose what little bits you need today and pay what you need today. And as people get confidence in that system working, then you can begin to build or suggest to people what else they could be acquiring, protection for their children's school things, or death benefits, or for the millions of small entrepreneurs that are selling a small amount of business interruption insurance if there's a heavy rainstorm and their product table gets washed away, and you can get a settlement of 10,000, 15,000 naira immediately in Lego. So a recognition, and this is hard for insurance companies, a recognition that insurance is a personal need that must be customized. And that can be done with today's technology. It's very simple. You can get on a bus in Nairobi, take a picture of the license plate of the bus through an app and say, I need 3 hours worth of third-party insurance in case the bus gets in an accident and I get injured. I have some protection. That technology exists. People can choose, maybe it's 50 shillings, but people can choose when they need to be covered and to what extent. That's what I think we need within these markets, is a recognition that customization is critical and will allow people to slowly enter into the insurance world. And then as things get, trust is built, then you can move on to other things. So hopefully, Damola, that helps out. I think customization and a recognition of what the customers need in their daily lives and how to go about getting it to them.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay. So, with the customization, I've always wanted to see how this would play, especially looking at the principle of insurance. So again, insurance is, largely driven by a pool of funds, right, where people are able to, people with similar risk are able to then put in, should I say premium now, in that fund, and then, wherever there is a risk or, a disaster or some form of crisis, you then pick up like the claims from that pool of funds, and then, pay out those claims to, sort of help whoever at that point in time is going through that, crisis, right? So how would this work in terms of customization? Looking at the fact that, again, insurance was some sort of, thrift. I like to call it like a thrift system that then became, structured, and, over time we're able to build around that, using terminologies like premiums and claims at the end of the day. So if we're beginning to have like pockets of, specified or specific or customizable products that are not necessarily similar to one another, how do we then manage like the key foundation of, insurance in terms of pulling funds together?
Another really, really to the core question, Flumi. Now, what I mean by customization is can't have an infinite number of potential covers for people, but you can customize how they access it and for how much and for how long. So if you have, say, for example, the third-party cover for bus riders, there is some uniformity there, and the actuaries would have to calculate out, what's the break-even amount of people using the product, to be able to build that law of large numbers basis for insurance, because your point is so well taken that you need a large pool, not everybody who's having a claim the same day. But in my opinion, that is doable. Now, it would be, of course, helpful if the capacity for selling these products early on has backing of, for example, reinsurance companies that say, this is a worthwhile venture, or perhaps even some backing from government entities where the government says, this is a worthwhile venture, and we need to build it, because the first day you sell one policy, and if the one policy has a claim, well, you're not making money. But you have to build the concept, allow people to customize it based on when they need it, how they need it, and for how much. And then based on that, you build a pricing scheme, just like any other insurance product. And it has to be clever. But again, getting to my point, the customization is not necessarily in what the product is, but how people are accessing it, what their entry points are, and how they go about that. And it's another piece, so and you get partners in having these schemes, like the bus companies. Look, we've got this available for you. It's accessible through our website when you buy a ticket. You can choose to get this, or we can embed the product in our price. It's the whole ecosystem benefits from the building of these types of products and exposures. Everybody can earn a little money from it, and the participants all get that kind of cover. So it's a game changer. And what it is, it's an admission that selling insurance like you do in the West is not necessarily what we need in Africa or South Asia or Latin America. The economies are different, the people's needs are different, and they deserve a different type of approach.
Valid points, right? And another sentiment that I have around players within the insurance value chain is, I think in these parts, we underestimate the role that reinsurers play. Across the world, you see players like, Hannover Re, Swiss Re, they're playing major roles in facilitating innovation within the insurance industry. Again, because I think that reinsurers, they kind of like dictate the tone of insurance, of the insurance industry alongside the regulators. What can we learn from the global reinsurance players, right? That can help us to move in terms of innovation.
Yeah, that's a fundamental concept and question. So if you look at Swiss Re, for example, globally, it's been more than 10 years that Swiss Re has been building, parametric products, climate risk products, things that are broad scope, government sponsored, etc. But reinsurance companies for regular business are always subject to how well the primary insurance companies do their business, right? So if there's a primary insurer that handles their property claims extremely well, then the exposure to the reinsurance company is going to be reliable in how they're business does its work. It's going to be prompt, which means their money is moved through quickly. And the experience becomes easier for the reinsurer to price going forward. Reinsurers are, they're the kind of the tail of the dog. The dog gets sick, the tail has to pay up. So it's smart moves by reinsurance companies to help the primary insurers become better insurers. And of course, if you can build how much business is being sold through the primary insurers, through encouraging insurtechs, providing resources and such, then the reinsurers get a better book of business and a growing book of business. So for an emerging market, reinsurers are smart to support the efforts of insurtechs. Plus, reinsurers are beginning to migrate towards becoming, I don't want to say primary insurers, but more having more impetus in how products are brought to market. Because reinsurers most often have close relationships with the large global brokers, and one hand kind of washes the other on how they're building business. So reinsurers encouraging insurtechs and startups, they're kind of making sure that the companies with whom they do business are doing better business and having more innovation available to them. That's at least my humble opinion, Damola.
I mean, every player within the ecosystem needs to play a lot more within the innovation conversation, right? Even insurers, right? There's a space for them to also put some more skin in the game in terms of, how can we even fund some of this innovation? Not because we want to make money from it. Yes, you want to make money, but that's not the primary aim. But we want to learn, want to improve, right? And I mean, that leads me to my next question around facilitating innovation, within the insurance space on the African continent, right? When you compare that to the fintech space like payments, banking, even property tech, there's not much activity, right? I have postulated in the past that perhaps maybe, yes, limited information about what exactly insurance is, right? But I know that you do a lot of work in terms of incubating innovation and incubating startups. Why do you think that there's not much activities, especially within these emerging markets, like you have mentioned all through our conversations? Even though, I mean, like we all see the opportunity.
Yeah, that's one of the most challenging points for anyone in the insurtech or fintech world in these emerging markets. But if you take payment systems 10 years ago, the trust in banking systems, I don't want to say the trust, the penetration of banking in many emerging markets, Africa included, was low. So if you take a payment system like M-Pesa, for example, and it becomes available to people to use in a way that they can access it easily, like they did. And then all of a sudden, M-Pesa becomes a big way that transactions are done. Same thing for WhatsApp. So let's look at insurance. The challenge for growing insurance startups in Africa are, number one, you've got to educate your customer of what the product is that you're selling. All right. And you've got a lot of startups, most of whom are not billionaires. In fact, I could say none of them are. They've got great ideas. They're clever in many ways. Young persons coming out of school, technology driven, or they've experienced in their personal lives situations where insurance would have been worthwhile. So you've got a wonderfully energetic group pushing to get these concepts in the market. Then you look at, well, how do we get them funded? You've got traditional economic models in the system that are, well, let's say they're not resistant to change, but they're not encouraging change because it's been built through an old model. So let's look to getting venture capital or something from outside of Africa. And you take a great concept that's vetted well and wonderful, and you go to the United States, you say, look, I've got this great concept. All we need is $100,000 US, and we'll have runway for a year or more. And the venture capitalists say, oh, that's too small of a ticket for us. But in the back of their mind, they're saying, well, Africa's an exotic market. We don't really know that much about it. And even though the concept sounds great, it's so far away and we don't really know. And, do we risk 100,000? It's hardly worth the effort, the due diligence, et cetera. So there's all of these challenges. So angel investing becomes the most important avenue for these startups to gain. And I'm talking primarily local angel investing. And through personal experience, it's a hard sell. And again, not begrudging any of the players. Everybody's got, their own great motivations for doing business the way they are. But in order for insurance to grow in Africa, confidence and appreciation of what insurance products can do for the population in large has to also grow. So it's going to take, I hate to say it's going to take time because that just sounds such a weak answer. It's going to take some visionaries who've got, a little bit of money to show some successes. And there have been many successes in the African market, but not to the point where we've gotten to a tipping point of people saying, yes, insurance is a great thing. If you buy a car, does the car dealer say, yep, now let's get a motor insurance for you? Or if you have a house or a business, is insurance on the forefront of your mind? Because typically it's not. So it's a groundswell that has to happen, and it's got to happen from inside the continent for it really to be something that's going to go. And how do I encourage that? Well, you two would know that far better than I. But I know that's where the basis. It's got to be a homegrown success. That you're not going to get a Sequoia Capital out of Lagos because that's just not necessarily a thing. But can you get people with 10, 20 million naira who can pitch in and say, look, yeah, this is a good thing, and I'm going to help my country out and help the economy? That's where we have to start from.
Hi, and I hope you did enjoy that conversation. Quite interesting one. Do ensure that you continue to listen to our podcast and share as well with your colleagues and friends future episodes and even previous ones on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, on every platform that you get your podcasts.
Right, and also don't forget to join the conversation on all of our social media platforms. We might have comments, reviews, as well as questions. Please do share on our LinkedIn page, on our Twitter page, as well as remember to follow us.